Patterns fascinate me because they talk about interconnectedness, about the idea that there's patterns in everything, that even though these paintings start out with this sort of chaotic, random application, there is a pattern in there. That idea of these tiny little building blocks that make up everything we see really fascinates me. My personal philosophy of how fleeting and delicate life is something I'm trying to show in the imagery. How we're all carried along in these gusts of energy, and it's a kind of a tenuous and fragile situation. I'm fascinated by those reoccurring patterns, and I'm sort of comforted by them. The fact that they do reoccur is a little bit reassuring in this crazy world. I wouldn't start a painting if I knew what it was going to be. So every painting is a surprise. Most of my paintings have three main elements. The first being the reactive, large, broad-scale paint application, and then things narrow down to the small, cerebral sort of color grids and the delicate, transparent life forms. So those three elements are in almost all of my recent images. A big part of what I do is just trying to get paint to behave as if it's weather, as if it's waves splashing or rain splashing on something. Pushing the paint into the surface like that is important to me on those first few layers, to really get it to grab in and kind of stain. So it's almost just leaving a ghost of itself. It's just part of this love for paint, like what it can do and the things that it can remind you of. Is that a shadow, and is that a mountain, or is that, you're looking for things in it. Even though it is just paint, it has this way of becoming something else. I work large because it's such a physical process. It's like you're really engaged in this place. It's almost as if the painting is a place and you're there in it. That large scale creates this sense of vastness that I'm after in the imagery. I also love working small, where you're just like at a table and you just have these just quiet moments where you don't need to move. It's just you and this 12-inch universe right there. The way I work is sort of an engagement with the random, although I also kind of question if random really exists, because everything is a pattern and we just call something random because we can't kind of find the pattern in it. These little grids are indicative of the idea that everything's made up of tiny iterations, pixels in a digital image or threads in fabric, that everything has these tiny little building blocks. And I also feel that it adds little moments of safety amidst some of the more energetic areas of the painting. So as a viewer and even as a maker, these are moments where you can slow down and sort of stop. The delicate life forms are free cut by hand, almost as if I'm doodling or drawing. It's just, I just draw them with the scissors. And for each painting, I create its own cast of characters. This is A collection of cutouts that I have never thrown out, as you can see. It's like finding old friends, really. The small cutouts are creatures of flight. They're not necessarily birds or insects, but maybe some sort of hybrid, just some representation of a life form that has flight. If you've ever read about high atmosphere entomology, where they go up and they find bugs that are riding air currents way up in our atmosphere. That idea of the delicate life like carried along in these sort of powerful forces is what's going on here. One of my biggest hopes with this series of paintings is that people get the sense of motion, even if it's just for a split second. I mean, they know they're looking at a still object. It's a painting. Nothing's moving. This is not a film. But I want even for just a split second, the viewer to think they're watching the action unfolding.
Minnesota Original is made possible by the State Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.